People have been taught that real healing only comes in bottles, boxes, and brand names. That if something doesn't come from a factory, it can't be trusted. But what if the land itself still carries answers that were quietly pushed aside? For generations, families survived with plants growing right outside their doors, long before industries turned health into a product. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Many of those plants didn't disappear because they stopped working. They disappeared because they couldn't be patented, packaged, or controlled. Today, while shelves get more crowded and prices keep rising, knowledge gets thinner. People feel more dependent, more disconnected, and strangely less secure about their own health and food. Yet in backyards, fields, and forgotten corners of nature, there are plants that once kept entire communities standing. This video will reveal 21 medicinal plants that modern medicine slowly ignored. Not because they failed, but because they didn't fit the system. If you've ever felt tired of being dependent, tired of not knowing what's in your food or remedies, this is where that quiet power begins to return. Let's begin. Long before it became a supplement on a store shelf, Echinacea was respected by Native American tribes as a plant of survival. It was used in everyday life to care for wounds, infections, and the small illnesses that appeared after long days exposed to the elements. In times when there was no industry to rely on, knowledge traveled by word of mouth, from elders to the young, like a quiet survival code. This plant was kept close to the living spaces, because people knew that sooner or later someone would need it. There is a strange kind of justice in remembering that many modern discoveries are, in truth, old practices rediscovered. And it is curious how this wisdom faded when modern life promised faster solutions. In practical terms, echinacea helps the body respond when the immune system starts to weaken, something that often happens with weather changes, poor sleep, or daily stress. It stimulates white blood cells, which act like small internal guardians, always watching for intruders. That is why many people turn to it at the first signs of a cold, that light scratch in the throat or sudden fatigue. Instead of running straight to industrial products, some choose simple teas or natural extracts, bringing care back to something closer to nature. It is not about miracle cures, but about supporting what the body already knows how to do. And once someone realizes that a simple plant can offer this kind of backup, it is hard not to wonder what other green allies are quietly waiting to be noticed. Plant number 2, Calendula, Calendula officinalis. Calendula did not enter gardens as decoration alone. For centuries it worked behind the scenes in European monastery gardens and village plots. Monks, midwives, and healers grew its bright orange flowers as a living first aid kit, ready for burns, cuts, and inflamed skin. In homes with wood stoves and rough daily labor, small injuries were common, and calendula was often the first line of care. This is why it earned the name flower of protection, always present when skin was vulnerable. Over time, these practices were slowly replaced by packaged solutions, and the plant lost its central role in everyday care. Still, in many old gardens, calendula stayed, quietly keeping its place as a trusted ally. What gives calendula its reputation are natural compounds that help calm inflammation and support tissue repair. In daily life, this becomes very practical. Infused oils or simple salves can soothe irritated skin, minor burns, or insect bites. For people interested in self-reliance through gardening, growing calendula is an easy step toward reducing dependence on industrial creams for small problems. It grows well, flowers generously, and offers more than beauty in return. There is something grounding about preparing a remedy with your own hands, knowing where it came from. And once this simple flower proves its value, curiosity naturally turns to what other forgotten plants might still be growing quietly nearby. Plant number 3, sea buckthorn, Hippophea rhamnoides. In cold regions of Asia and Europe, sea buckthorn grew where few other plants dared to survive, and this alone gave it a special status among travelers and rural communities. Old records tell of its berries being given to tired horses after long journeys or battles, a practical attempt to restore strength and shine to their coats. People who lived close to the land noticed that this plant seemed to renew both inside and out, even if they could not explain why. As modern products took over, this knowledge slowly faded into the background. Yet sea buckthorn kept thriving in poor soils, as if patiently guarding a lesson that the rush of modern life chose to forget. The real strength of sea buckthorn lies in its bright berries, rich in a rare fatty acid known as omega-7, linked to skin and mucous membrane health. This connects directly with common issues like dry skin, irritated eyes, and constant sensitivity, problems that urban life and dry air only worsen. Instead of relying only on cosmetic solutions, some people use natural oils derived from this plant as part of daily care. For those practicing gardening with a self-sufficient mindset, learning about plants like this changes how wild or rough species are seen. When a plant that survives harsh conditions offers such gentle support to the body, it raises a quiet question. What other overlooked survivors might be holding forgotten remedies? Plant number 4. Comfrey, Symphytum officinale. In medieval Europe, comfrey was treated almost like a strategic resource, something no household wanted to be without. It was commonly grown near villages and monasteries by people who dealt daily with falls, cuts, and bruises from physical labor. The old nickname knitbone did not come from fantasy, but from repeated observation that poultices made from its leaves helped the body recover from surface injuries. This knowledge did not come from books, but from experience passed down through families. As industrial solutions became common, comfrey slowly slipped into the background of popular memory. Even so, it never disappeared from the gardens of those who trusted the quiet intelligence of plants. Comfrey contains allantoin, a compound known to support cell regeneration and the repair of external tissues. In everyday terms, this means simple applications for bruises, sprains, and sore joints after heavy work. Traditional knowledge always respected that this plant is for external use, long before science explained why internal use should be avoided. For anyone building a self-reliant gardening space, having comfrey nearby feels like keeping a small green first aid station in the yard. There is a certain confidence that grows when you realize the garden can help you recover from small accidents. And when a humble plant can assist the body in healing itself, it naturally sparks curiosity about what other quiet healers might be growing unnoticed. Plant number 5. Mullein verbascum thapsus. Long before it became a forgotten roadside plant, mullein had a place in daily life across ancient Europe. In Roman times, its tall, dry stalks were dipped in fat and used as torches, lighting the way through dark paths and long nights. In rural villages, people kept the plant nearby because chest troubles were common in cold, smoky homes. Coughs and breathing discomfort were part of everyday life, and mullein was one of the quiet helpers people trusted. As homes changed and remedies became industrialized, this tall plant faded into the background of memory. Yet it still grows freely along roadsides, as if waiting to be recognized again. Mullein is known for supporting the lungs, helping loosen mucus and soothe irritated airways. In practical terms, this means simple infusions made from the dried leaves or flowers when coughs, chest tightness, or heavy breathing appear. People who practice gardening with a self-reliant mindset often grow it not for beauty, but for its quiet usefulness during the colder months. It does not promise instant relief, but it supports the body in clearing what does not belong there. There is a calm confidence in knowing that a plant from your own garden can help you breathe a little easier. And once breathing feels lighter again, it naturally opens curiosity about what other everyday plants might be helping parts of the body we rarely think about. Plant number 6, plantain weed, Plantago major, Plantago lanceolata. Wherever people traveled, this humble plant seemed to follow. Indigenous communities once called it the white man's footprint, because it appeared along paths, roads, and disturbed soil wherever colonization passed. It was never planted for beauty, yet it quietly earned a place in everyday survival. In times when long walks, field work, and rough tools were part of life, small injuries were unavoidable. Plantain became the plant you could rely on when nothing else was nearby. While modern life rushed past it, this green companion stayed close to the ground, almost invisible to hurried eyes. Plantain leaves can be crushed into a simple paste and placed directly on insect bites, minor burns, or small cuts to calm irritation and support the skin's natural recovery. For those who keep a self-reliant gardening space, this is the kind of plant that proves usefulness does not need to look impressive. It grows easily, asks for very little, and shows up exactly when needed. Knowing that relief can come from a leaf picked nearby changes the way people see their surroundings. It builds a quiet confidence in nature's readiness to help. And when a so-called weed turns out to be this practical, it naturally invites curiosity about which other overlooked plants might also be carrying hidden value. Plant number 7, yarrow, a Calea millefolium. Long before it became a plant studied in books, yarrow carried stories of the battlefield. Its name is linked to Achilles, the legendary warrior said to have used it to treat wounded soldiers in ancient conflicts. Whether legend or lived practice, people across Europe learned to keep this plant close during times of travel and war. Cuts, bleeding, and fevers were part of harsh daily life, and yarrow became a companion for those who faced danger without modern protection. Over generations, this knowledge blended into folk medicine, even as the original stories faded. Still, the plant remained rooted in fields and meadows, holding on to its quiet reputation. Yarrow is known for helping slow bleeding and supporting the body when fevers appear. In practical use, fresh leaves could be gently pressed on small cuts to encourage clotting, a simple action that once made a real difference in emergencies. For those interested in gardening as a step towards self-reliance, yarrow offers more than beauty with its delicate flowers. It becomes a reminder that some plants were chosen by history itself for moments of urgency. Learning to recognize it in the wild or in the garden changes how one looks at open fields and forgotten corners. And when a single plant carries both legend and practical value, it opens the door to wondering how many other quiet allies are hiding in plain sight. Plant number 8, self-heal, Prunella vulgaris. Across European countryside paths and old farmlands, self-heal grew as a small, easily overlooked plant, yet it earned deep respect among rural communities. It was known as a quick helper for everyday wounds, the kind of plant people reached for when a knife slipped or a mouth sore made eating uncomfortable. This was not a plant of grand ceremonies, but of quiet, practical care, passed down in family routines. Over time, as home remedies were replaced by packaged products, self-heal slowly disappeared from common memory. Still, it continues to grow in meadows and garden edges, as if keeping its role available for those who choose to notice. Self-heal supports the recovery of delicate tissues, especially in the mouth and throat, where irritation can linger and make simple acts like speaking or eating uncomfortable. In daily life, this meant mild teas for sore throats or gentle rinses for mouth sores, small habits that offered comfort without harsh effects. For people exploring gardening as a path to independence, keeping such a plant nearby brings back a sense of simple preparedness. It teaches that care does not always need to be dramatic to be effective. And when a small, almost invisible plant proves its worth in moments of discomfort, it naturally leads to curiosity about what other modest herbs might be carrying quiet, forgotten solutions. Plant number 9, agrimony, Agrimonia eupatoria. In medieval villages, agrimony was not treated as just another wild herb. It carried a reputation of protection and gentle purification. People believed it helped the body recover after long days of hard work and poor food, common realities of rural life. It appeared in simple household preparations, shared between neighbors when sore throats or stomach discomfort became common during colder seasons. This plant lived in the space between medicine and daily routine, quietly supporting health without ceremony. As remedies became commercial and distant, agrimony slipped out of everyday use. Yet it still grows along field edges and paths, holding on to its old place in traditional knowledge. Agrimony contains natural compounds that help tone irritated tissues, which explains why it was used for mild throat discomfort and digestive upsets. In practical terms, this once meant preparing light infusions after heavy meals or during periods of seasonal sickness. For those interested in gardening as a form of self-care, cultivating agrimony is less about trends and more about restoring a small habit of prevention. It reminds people that the body often asks for gentle support before problems grow larger. Bringing back such simple practices creates a feeling of quiet control over one's own well-being. And when a plant once trusted by entire communities proves useful again, it raises the question of what other gentle allies might be waiting to return to daily life. Plant number 10, milk thistle, Silybum marianum. Milk thistle has walked alongside human history for a very long time, appearing in medical texts from ancient Greece and later in Roman traditions. It was known as a plant connected to inner cleansing, often associated with restoring balance after periods of excess or illness. In times when food quality varied and contamination was common, people looked for ways to support the body's natural filters. Milk thistle became part of that quiet strategy, cultivated in herb gardens and respected for its role in recovery. Over centuries, this knowledge remained in the background, even as modern life introduced faster, packaged answers. Yet the plant continued to grow stubbornly in poor soils, as if refusing to leave the story. The value of milk thistle lies in a group of compounds known as silymarin, studied for its protective effects on liver cells. In everyday life, this connects to the liver's role in processing what enters the body, from food to environmental exposure. For people focused on gardening and self-sufficiency, keeping this plant in mind brings awareness to the idea of internal care, not just external fixes. It shifts attention from treating symptoms to supporting the systems that keep the body resilient. There is something grounding about knowing that a plant long trusted by earlier civilizations still holds relevance today. And when inner balance becomes part of the conversation, curiosity naturally turns toward what other ancient allies might be waiting to be remembered. Plant number 11, blue vervain, Verbena officinalis. In ancient Europe, vervain was not treated as a simple herb. It carried a sacred reputation among druids and early spiritual traditions. It was gathered with intention, often linked to rituals of protection and inner balance. People believed this plant helped restore calm after emotional strain, something deeply needed in times of uncertainty and hardship. Long before modern ideas of stress existed, communities already noticed the weight that worry placed on the body. Vervain became part of the quiet rituals of daily grounding, even if those rituals were later forgotten. Over time, spiritual meaning faded, but the plant remained rooted in old fields and garden edges. Vervain supports the nervous system in a gentle way, often described as calming without causing heaviness or dullness. In practical terms, this meant simple infusions taken during periods of restlessness, when the mind refused to slow down. For those who practice gardening with the goal of reclaiming small moments of peace, keeping a plant like vervain nearby brings awareness to emotional balance as part of health. It encourages a slower rhythm, one that modern life rarely allows. There is a subtle power in tending to the nervous system before it reaches a breaking point, and once calm becomes part of the daily routine again, it opens space to wonder what other plants might quietly support parts of the self that often go ignored. Plant number 12, dandelion, Taraxacum officinal. For centuries, dandelion was not seen as a weed, but as a bitter ally in European folk traditions. It appeared in early spring when stored food was low and the body felt heavy after long winters. People gathered its leaves and roots to prepare tonics meant to wake up the system after months of limited movement and simple meals. This plant became part of seasonal rituals of renewal, helping the body adjust to change. As lawns became symbols of order and control, dandelion was pushed out, labeled unwanted. Still, it continues to rise from cracks in sidewalks, quietly refusing to disappear. Dandelion supports the liver and kidneys, helping the body manage fluids and digestion more smoothly. In daily life, this once meant adding young leaves to meals or preparing mild infusions to support natural cleansing. For those practicing gardening as a way to regain control over food and health, Dandelion challenges the idea that only cultivated plants are useful. It teaches that value often grows in places people overlook. Relearning to work with such a common plant reshapes how people see their own backyards. And when something so familiar reveals hidden usefulness, it naturally sparks curiosity about what other weeds might actually be old allies in disguise. Plant number 13, toothache plant, Acmella oleracea. In parts of the Amazon and other tropical regions, this plant was never considered exotic. It was simply part of everyday survival. Local communities learned to recognize its small flowers as a quick answer to sudden tooth pain or gum discomfort. When dental care was distant or unavailable, this plant became a practical ally, passed between families as a shared solution. Its use did not come from theory, but from lived experience with real pain and real relief. Over time, this knowledge remained mostly within traditional cultures, rarely crossing into modern habits. Yet the plant continues to grow where it always has, quietly holding on to its role. What makes the toothache plant remarkable is the immediate tingling and numbing sensation it creates in the mouth. This effect comes from natural compounds that interact with nerve endings, offering short-term relief from discomfort. In practical terms, people would chew a small piece of the flower or leaf to calm sudden pain until proper care was possible. For those exploring gardening as a path toward resilience, learning about such plants shifts the idea of preparedness beyond food alone. It highlights that the garden can also offer comfort in moments of unexpected trouble. And when relief can come from something grown in soil rather than bought in a box, it naturally leads to curiosity about what other quiet remedies might be waiting to be rediscovered. Plant number 14, elderberry, Sambucus nigra. Across Europe, elder trees were treated with a kind of quiet respect, often planted near homes as symbols of protection. People believed the tree guarded the household, and its presence was tied to folk traditions that blended care with reverence. Long winters and seasonal illnesses shaped daily life, and elderberry became part of the family routine during colder months. Berries were gathered, dried, and stored, not as a trend, but as preparation. As modern medicine became more distant from home kitchens, this tradition slowly faded from memory. Still, elder trees remain scattered across countryside and old gardens, waiting to be noticed again. Elderberry is known for supporting the body during seasonal challenges, particularly when viral infections are common. In practical terms, this once meant preparing syrups or warm infusions during winter, offering gentle support to the immune system. For those who practice gardening with a focus on independence, growing elderberry reconnects daily life with seasonal rhythms. It brings back the idea of preparing ahead instead of reacting in fear. There is something grounding about storing what your own land provides for harder times. And when a single tree carries both cultural meaning and practical value, it opens the door to wondering what other old companions of the household might be waiting to return. Plant number 15. Peppermint, Mentha ex piperita. Peppermint carries a long trail of human use, appearing in records from ancient Egypt and later in Greek and Roman writings. It was valued not only for its refreshing aroma, but for how it brought relief after heavy meals and long days of physical work. In homes where food was simple and digestion often strained, mint became part of the daily rhythm, grown close to the kitchen door for easy access. This was not luxury, but practical comfort woven into routine. As flavors became artificial and remedies industrialized, peppermint slowly shifted from medicine to mere flavoring. Still, the plant continues to spread wherever it finds space, quietly holding on to its original role. Peppermint helps relax the muscles of the digestive tract, easing nausea, gas, and tension after meals. In everyday practice, this once meant brewing a simple tea after eating or gently inhaling its scent to calm headaches. For those building self-reliance through gardening, growing peppermint is a reminder that comfort can come from what is easy to grow. It thrives with little care and offers support for small discomforts that often get ignored. Learning to use it intentionally brings attention back to daily signals the body sends. And when a familiar scent turns into a tool of care, curiosity naturally drifts toward what other common plants might also hold forgotten value. Plant number 16, barberry, Berberis vulgaris. In ancient Persia and across parts of Asia, barberry was not just a wild shrub, but a valued part of traditional medicine. Its sharp thorns and bright berries made it easy to recognize, and people learned to respect it from a distance. In times when digestive infections were common and clean water was not guaranteed, communities relied on plants that could help the body fight back. Barberry found its place in that landscape of survival, becoming part of shared household knowledge. As modern medicine centralized care, this old familiarity faded into the background. Yet the shrub still grows along hedges and field edges, carrying its legacy quietly. Barberry is known for containing berberine, a compound studied for its antibacterial and digestive supporting properties. In practical terms, this once meant preparing bitter infusions when stomach troubles appeared, or when the body felt off after questionable food. For those practicing gardening as a form of self-reliance, learning about such plants changes how defensive shrubs are perceived. It becomes less about appearance and more about function. Reconnecting with plants that taste bitter also reshapes expectations about comfort and health. And when bitterness proves useful, it invites reflection on what other uncomfortable-tasting plants might actually be powerful allies. Plant number 17, red clover, Trifolium pratense. In old European fields and village meadows, red clover was more than pasture for animals. It was part of the quiet care of daily life. Rural families learned to gather its blossoms for simple teas, especially when women faced changes in the body that brought discomfort or imbalance. These practices did not come from formal instruction, but from observation and shared experience across generations. The plant became woven into seasonal routines, growing where life was already happening. As medical care moved farther from the home, this gentle knowledge slowly slipped out of common use. Still, red clover continues to bloom in open fields, waiting for those who recognize its quiet presence. Red clover contains natural plant compounds that gently mirror some effects of estrogen, which helps explain its traditional use during hormonal shifts. In everyday terms, this meant using mild infusions to ease discomfort, rather than fighting the body's changes. For those who approach gardening as a way to support long-term well-being, growing red clover brings awareness to balance rather than suppression. It invites patience with natural transitions instead of resistance. There is something steadying about working with plants that reflect the body's rhythms instead of forcing quick fixes. And when gentle support proves meaningful, it opens curiosity about what other soft, overlooked plants might be holding space for quiet healing. Plant number 18, sassafras, Sassafras albidum. When European explorers first encountered sassafras in North America, it quickly became one of the earliest medicinal plants exported back to Europe. At the time, it was praised almost as a wonder plant, linked to fever relief and general cleansing of the body. In an era of limited medical understanding, new plants carried enormous hope, especially when they came from distant lands. Sassafras entered European markets as a symbol of promise and novelty, woven into early global trade. Over time, the excitement faded as risks and limitations became better understood. Still, the story of sassafras reflects how quickly knowledge can rise, fall, and be reshaped by changing perspectives. Historically, sassafras was used for fevers and rheumatic discomfort, often prepared as aromatic teas or tonics. Later research revealed that some of its compounds can be harmful to the liver when used improperly or in concentrated forms. This shift in understanding teaches an important lesson for anyone interested in gardening and natural remedies. Tradition and safety must walk together. Knowing when not to use a plant is just as valuable as knowing when to use one. Respecting limits is part of true self-reliance, not fear. And when a once celebrated plant reveals both promise and caution, it naturally leads to reflection on how many other old remedies deserve a closer, more careful look. Plant number 19, valerian, Valeriana officinalis. Valerian has been part of human care since ancient Roman times, when it was used to calm restless minds and unsettled bodies. In periods marked by uncertainty, war, and long nights of worry, people sought plants that could soften the edges of anxiety. Valerian became one of those quiet companions, grown near homes and gathered with intention. Its strong, earthy scent was well known, even if not always loved, and that alone made it memorable. As modern life introduced faster ways to silence discomfort, valerian slowly stepped out of daily routines. Still, it continues to grow in gardens and wild edges, holding on to its old role. Valerian is known for supporting deeper rest and easing nervous tension, helping the body transition into sleep more smoothly. In everyday use, this once meant taking gentle infusions in the evening when the mind refused to slow down. For those practicing gardening as a form of autonomy, keeping valerian nearby reconnects rest with natural rhythms instead of artificial stimulation. It reminds people that sleep is not something to be forced, but invited. Learning to create evening rituals with simple plants reshapes the relationship with rest itself. And when calm returns to the night, curiosity naturally turns toward what other plants might quietly support parts of life that modern routines keep disturbed. Plant number 20, witch hazel, Hamamelis virginiana. Long before bottled toners and commercial skin products existed, witch hazel was part of daily care among Native American communities. It was gathered and prepared to soothe wounds, calm inflammation, and support skin after injuries from work or travel. This knowledge was grounded in close observation of how the plant interacted with the body over time. As settlers learned from indigenous practices, witch hazel slowly entered wider use, eventually becoming a staple in household care. Over the years, its original context was diluted, as products became more processed and distant from the plant itself. Still, the shrub continues to grow along forest edges, quietly carrying its original role. Witch hazel is rich in natural tannins, compounds that help tighten tissues and reduce swelling on the surface of the skin. In everyday practice, this meant using simple extracts for minor cuts, irritation, or swelling after long days of physical effort. For those building self-reliance through gardening, understanding plants like witch hazel brings care back to direct contact with nature. It shifts attention away from labels and toward relationships with living resources. There is a grounded confidence in knowing that relief can come from a nearby shrub rather than a distant factory. And when the skin becomes another space for natural care, it invites curiosity about what other parts of daily health might still be supported by forgotten plants. Before we close this chapter, there are two final plants you need to see. Not because they were forgotten, but because they were oversimplified. They became popular, and when something goes mainstream, people stop treating it with respect. What once was knowledge turned into packaging. So let's take a quick look at two familiar plants the old way, with context, caution, and purpose. Long before turmeric became a trending supplement in the wellness market, it was already woven into daily life across India and Southeast Asia. For more than 4,000 years, it served as both medicine and sacred symbol, present in healing rituals and household remedies. Families used it not because it was fashionable, but because experience showed its value over generations. In kitchens, it colored food. In ceremonies, it marked protection. In care routines, it supported recovery. As modern systems separated food from medicine, turmeric's deeper role was simplified into a single, active ingredient. Yet the root itself remained part of living traditions, quietly bridging nourishment and care. Turmeric contains curcumin, studied for its anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects, which helps explain its long-standing reputation for supporting joints and overall balance. In daily life, this once meant adding small amounts to meals or warm drinks, making care part of nourishment rather than a separate act. For those who practice gardening and home cultivation, growing turmeric reconnects health with the kitchen garden, not the pharmacy aisle. It encourages small, consistent habits instead of dramatic interventions. There is something powerful in turning everyday meals into subtle acts of support for the body. And when food itself becomes a form of care, It naturally leads to curiosity about what other roots might be quietly nourishing more than just hunger. Bonus 2. American Ginseng, Panax quinquefolius. American ginseng held great value among indigenous peoples of North America, long before it became a sought-after export to distant markets. It was respected as a root connected to strength and endurance, gathered with care and never taken lightly from the land. In the 18th century, demand from Asia transformed it into a traded commodity, shifting it from local remedy to global product. This change altered not only how the plant was valued, but how it was harvested, often with little regard for balance. Still, in its original context, ginseng was treated as something precious, not endlessly available. Its story reflects how knowledge can be reshaped when tradition meets commerce. American ginseng is known as an adaptogen, meaning it supports the body's ability to handle physical and mental stress over time. In everyday terms, this once meant small, respectful use during periods of exhaustion rather than constant stimulation. For those building resilience through gardening and self-sufficiency, this root represents a different relationship with energy, one that values steadiness over burnout. It reminds people that true strength grows from recovery, not endless pushing. Learning from plants that support balance reshapes how energy is spent in daily life. And when endurance becomes something cultivated rather than forced, it opens space to rethink what sustainable living truly looks like. Everything you've just seen points to one simple truth. Knowledge changes nothing if it stays in your head. These plants only become powerful when they become part of your daily choices. What you grow, what you learn to recognize, and what you stop depending on without questioning. So the real question is, what will you do differently after this? Will you start a small garden, learn to identify one plant this week, or pay closer attention to what you reach for when your body asks for support? Look around your space. Is there a corner of land, a pot on a window, or even a wild patch nearby where something useful could grow? What if the next step toward independence isn't a big plan, but one small habit you repeat? Which of these plants surprised you the most? And which one do you feel curious to bring back into your life? Drop your answer in the comments, because your experience might unlock someone else's first step. If this way of seeing the world speaks to you, don't walk this path alone. You're invited to explore the other topics on this channel. Subscribe to Forbidden Garden Secrets and turn on notifications, because here we're rebuilding forgotten knowledge, one plant at a time. This isn't about trends. It's about reclaiming control, learning from the land, and choosing a slower, more grounded way to live.